my name is Erin and welcome to my channel. Today's video is one that I've wanted to make for a really long time, and it is another video about anxiety because I make a lot of videos about mental issues, obviously, I guess. But this one I really want to talk about, and I wanted to do it like a month ago because it was back to school time and all that. But I want to talk a little bit about navigating school when you deal with anxiety, because it's honestly something that's really, really difficult and needs to be talked about, and everybody could use some help with. So hopefully I have a couple tips I can share with you to make it a little bit easier to deal with if you are struggling with anxiety and school just exacerbates it. I think every single human being experiences some type of anxiety around school, whether or not you have a clinical mental illness like generalized anxiety disorder, or you're just a normal human being, because being anxious sometimes is normal. But there's a point where it gets to a place where you are incapacitated by your anxiety. And the best way that I can think of to describe this feeling is, you know, when you're watching like a scary movie or something and you know something really, really bad is going to happen and your heart's racing and you know something really bad is going to happen but it hasn't happened yet, but you know something bad is going to happen, so you're in this state of like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. It's like that times a million, and it's constant. And then you also get frustrated because you're like, what am I even anxious about? I'm just anxious about being alive. And being in school around a whole bunch of people and not being able to leave if you're feeling horrible, like you're locked in this building for 9 hours out of a day, it is terrifying. And just a quick little backstory just to see where I'm coming from. I'm pretty sure that I was born an anxious person. I can remember having panic attacks back when I was either 5 or 6. It was when I first moved into this house when I experienced my first panic attack, and it was awful. And I remember just laying in bed and I'd be thinking about this one thing, and it's this one specific thing that still makes me have panic attacks. And like I would start thrashing around because I couldn't breathe, and I felt like my heart was trying to escape my chest, and I felt like I was going to throw up, and I wanted to scream, and I wanted to like just run away, and like I couldn't sit still. And I would go downstairs and tell my parents that I had a stomach ache because I didn't know I was having a panic attack. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I was terrified, and I didn't want to tell my parents what I was so scared of, because it just would have seemed weird, I guess. When I was in high school, I was very depressed and really didn't like myself my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I was very, very, very sick, and it made things really bad. And then my dad also passed away. So you can imagine that I became just a complete emotional wreck. I missed over 20 days of school, both my junior and my senior years of high school. And not because I was sick, but because there were days where I would just wake up and collapse in complete panic, or I would have to go home early because I would go to the nurse like shaking and I couldn't breathe. And so that's just where I'm coming from, just so you know that like I have a leg to stand, like, so just so you know that if you're dealing with this, I can never say I know exactly how you're feeling, because nobody can know exactly how somebody's feeling. I think it's important to know that you're not the only one who's feeling this way, and it doesn't make you bad or flawed if you're feeling this way or if you're dealing with this, because it's so easy to feel like you're using your anxiety as a cop-out. I know I feel like this all the time. I feel like I'm just using this fact that I'm dealing with this as an excuse to not do things, and that's my self-depreciating thinking. But the fact of the matter is, it's a real issue, and unfortunately you can call up work and say, I can't get out of bed, I have the flu. You can't call up work and say, I can't get out of bed, I'm just incapacitated by depression, or I'm collapsed in a ball hysterically crying because I'm having a panic attack. You can't do that, which sucks. Anyway, rambling aside, let me just share some ways that I was able to navigate school when I was dealing with all this stuff, and hopefully it helps you guys in some way. The first tip that I have is to really, really get a set morning routine going. I know it's so easy to want to get as much sleep as physically possible, So, you know, you wake up in the morning and you're at the door in like 5 minutes. I know that's like kind of what a lot of people want to do. I found that when I gave myself a long time in the morning to kind of get myself mentally prepared for the day, it made such a huge difference on my emotional state for the rest of the day. I would get up at 5:30 I still get up at 5:30 every morning, but at school I would get up at 5:30 every morning, and I had to leave my house by 7:08 to drive to school. And even I left to go to school early. I would get to school like 45 minutes early, before the first bell rang, just because I knew, just knowing myself, that I needed that time. So I would wake up at 5:30 and I would do some type of workout, whether it be Pilates, or recently I've been doing yoga the first thing in the morning when I wake up. And if that's not your thing, that's fine, but that I just found got me in a little bit of a more positive headspace for the rest of the day. So I would do half an hour of that, and then I would go and I would make myself a cup of tea, and I would have and I would get completely ready, and then I would still have like 45 minutes to a half an hour to just kind of like sit and think and get myself prepared for the day. And I know it seems like something so small, but it really, really, really helped me. I found that any day that, like, say my alarm didn't go off, I find that the way that you start out your day impacts how you feel for the rest of the day. Like, if you're starting out the day really frustrated and anxious because you're running out the door, I feel like that carries on to the rest of the day. Like, I know if I'm completely like a mess in the morning, I'm going to be a mess the rest of the day, unfortunately. So that's my first thing. My second thing that really, really helped me was that I spoke to my school guidance counselor. And in my school, every homeroom was assigned a guidance counselor, and people would go to them more so for academic things, like for college and where you're going to go and blah, 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 blah. I happened to go to my guidance counselor for the first time completely unwillingly, because people were very concerned about me at the beginning of my sophomore year, and I hated my guidance counselor because I was so mad at him for him being concerned about me, which is stupid, but that was the way my mind worked back then. So I wound up not going back to him again until my junior year, where I was like, I am not okay. So I started going to my guidance counselor, and he was amazing, and I could just go and sit and talk and cry, and sometimes I would sit and we would talk about like happy things, like the weather, or just like silly things, or sometimes I would go in and I would cry. And I got into a system where I was going to see him 2 times every week, and really it was my safe haven in school, because I knew that I was able to get out of class for a little while and just go sit in a room, and sometimes I didn't even have to talk to him. I could just sit there and breathe and do whatever I needed to do. And I'm pretty sure that most schools offer some type of counseling, and I know it seems daunting, and I know that there wasn't as much in my school because we were required to have the guidance counselors for our homeroom, but I was going every week, and at first I was kind of embarrassed because every morning someone would come in with a note for me to leave, and I would have to get up in the middle of class and leave to go to guidance. And at first I was kind of like, this is so embarrassing, everybody knows I'm a head case, but everyone already knew that anyway, so it doesn't matter. But honestly, if you have something like that, even like I know when my religion class, my senior year, we started doing a chapter on death and dying, which was great and didn't freak me out at all, and it was horrible, and I had many times where I'd have to put my head on the desk and just try my hardest not to completely break down. And my guidance counselor worked it out with me that if I ever really needed to leave, I could go and sit in his office. He wasn't even in his office during my time in that class, but he was like, if you just need to leave. And so basically just talk to people. And that leads me to my third thing. If things are really, really bad for you, let your teachers know. Once again, I know that it feels really shameful and embarrassing, and I know that it kind of be like, well, I can't tell my teacher that I can't do this assignment because I have anxiety. That doesn't make sense. But more people understand than you think that they do, and honestly, people are more compassionate than you would think. And I'm not saying that with every single project that you're doing, go to your teacher and tell them that you're having a really hard time. But I'm saying if you're having such a difficult time that you're really falling behind, let somebody know, like let your teachers know. And I know I was in probably a unique situation where I had some really incredible people as teachers, but if there's a kind of teacher that you feel comfortable with, or even if you just can shoot them an email if you don't feel comfortable talking to them face to face, just be like, hey, listen, I just want to let you know that I'm dealing with this, blah, 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 blah. And I don't want you to think that the reason that I'm not handing in my assignments, or I'm doing poorly on tests, or if I seem like I'm not paying attention in class, I just want to let you know that it's not because I don't care. I very much do care. I'm just struggling with this thing. And if there's anything that I can do, if there's any, like, I can come after school, or like make sure that they know that you're willing to try, so that they know that you're not just trying to make excuses for yourself. But if you really take that initiative and you try to talk to somebody, it really makes a big difference. And I know with my teachers, they were very compassionate for the most part. And a lot of them really wanted to help me out. And as long as you show that you care and you want to do it. Because once I showed that I cared, my teachers were like, oh, you're not doing poorly because you don't care. You're doing poorly because all this stuff is going on in your head, and here, why don't you come after school on Fridays and we'll go over it, or why don't you have a little extra time on this because you're having trouble. And it really did help me a lot, and I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, the next thing I have is this stuff called GABA Calm, and this is by Source Nature. And this has been my saving grace in really bad situations, honestly. So GABA Calm combines two of the main inhibitory neurotransmitters, GABA and glycine, with N-acetyl L-tyrosine, which is a precursor to the neurotransmitters dopamine and norepinephrine, which are the things that help you feel joy and calmness. In addition, taurine supports the calming effect of GABA. The lozenge form dissolves in the water. Blah, 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 blah. This stuff has been so helpful to me. You can pick it up at any health food store. It's safe. It's almost like along the same lines of if you take melatonin, how that's something that already exists in your body and you're just trying to balance that out when you have insomnia. It's kind of the same deal. And it's not like taking a Xanax where you're going to be like zombied out. But if I'm starting to get really, really anxious, if I just take one of these, it doesn't make all of my anxiety go away, but it keeps me from getting to that point where I am gone completely. Because once I get to a certain point, it's like having an out-of-body experience, and you get to that point of complete and utter panic. So I carry this stuff around with me, and honestly, I really do recommend it. Obviously, if you're having really, really bad issues, go and talk to somebody, go to a psychiatrist, and maybe get something prescribed to you. I personally don't take anything right now. I might at some point. I've been trying to do it on my own. Not working out that well. I'm not anti-medication, I've just had some bad experiences with them, but this stuff really does help me, and I carry this around with me at school. And once again, it doesn't make it all better. It doesn't like knock out every bad feeling that you're having, but if you find yourself starting to get worked up, taking one or two of these really does help bring you down a little bit and makes just existing a little more manageable. Because, you know, it's so hard. It really is difficult to have this kind of internal war going on constantly. Nobody can see it, and it feels like nobody really understands it, and it's very stigmatized and very overly, like, too many people are like, oh wow, my anxiety's so bad, but they don't actually suffer with the kind of everybody. If someone's feeling very anxious and that's the worst that they've ever felt as far as anxiety goes, that is completely valid. I'm not invalidating the way that anybody feels, but I'm saying that there's a difference between you get anxious when you're talking in front of people or public speaking, and getting anxious because a woman yells at you in the store. This happened to me the other day. A woman bumped into me in the store and started yelling at me and asked if I was stupid, and I walked into the other aisle of CVS and had to curl up in a ball and had a full-on panic attack. I was hyperventilating. It was really embarrassing. So I don't want you to get to that point. I want you to be able to enjoy your life and these are just some things that I found to help me a little bit. I know that it's not much, but there's something, and I know that school can be so hard, and I really struggled just with existing. I didn't want anyone to see me, and I couldn't form conversations with people because every time someone would say something to me, I would have to think for like over a minute to think of a proper response to them, and that would result in me reacting really weirdly to people, and I lost all my friends, and I don't want that to happen to you. I really don't. And this is my way, my little, probably insignificant way of helping you. And also just know that you're not alone, and if you're dealing with anything, honestly, if you're having trouble, I know that I'm not a therapist or anything, but if you want to leave a comment, or you can direct message me on Twitter, it's at Erin Honor, and if you just want to vent about something, I would honestly love to hear from you. I like when people come to me with their problems. I think it validates me a little bit, but I've dealt with it, and I want you to know that you're okay, and I want to give you a virtual hug, and yeah, so thanks for watching. Bye guys.